Oh, Jai, of course. Yes, yes, yes. Now I remember. Alright, Heinrix. Heinrix looks at you intently, his head tilted. You wanted to discuss the nature of your mission.
Yes, but not here. I wouldn't want our conversation to be gossip fodder on the bridge and in the officers' mess.
Is that first part also going to be the only voice-acted part, for some reason? Sure is. So weird that that part's voice-acted, but not the rest. Heinrix nods slightly. Thank you for finding an opportunity to talk. I trust now would be a good time to explain the reason for my return aboard your ship. I welcome the chance to assist the Inquisition with this inquiry, Von Kalox. Lord Captain, your enthusiasm is commendable. The interrogator smiles, but his eyes remain cold. To business, then. The cult of the Final Dawn. The madmen preach their heretical doctrine among the denizens of the Coronis Expanse and instigate crimes against the throne and humanity. One such crime took place in your protectorate. The Lord Inquisitor considered it necessary to have one of his acolytes accompany the rogue trader on the voyage into the corrupted region. I also need to meet with one of my observers on the capital world of your domain. Why would Ordo Xenos agents investigate a chaos cult? It is weird. You would expect the Ordo Hereticus to be doing it. That's why I was surprised when Heinrix introduced himself as Ordo Xenos to begin with. You are well versed in how the Inquisition is organized, Ophelia. Yes, initially our arrival in the Coronis Expanse was dictated by the need to fight Xenos, but there is more. The cult is tangentially related to my main specialization. Perhaps I will be able to reveal the full truth someday, but right now I ask you to display humility and patience. It isn't exactly unusual for an Ordo to be doing stuff outside of their specialization, but it is unusual. I want to know more about this cult of the Final Dawn. Chaos worshippers, most often agents of the throne, run into lone renegades stirring up the rabble, insane prophets and hysteric visionaries preaching the end of days. A passing comet, a mutant rebellion, an onslaught of monsters. Each time they come up with a new reason why people should prostrate themselves and quiver in fear. Much effort and blood of those loyal to the Golden Throne was spent before we established the connection between those heretics. However, the cult of the Final Dawn is something greater than a gaggle of misguided seers and fortune-tellers. They cleverly spread their agents all over the Coronis Expanse, disseminating heresy among honest people on the Imperial worlds. There is a certain strategy to their actions that changes whenever we get too close. And finally, they have enough military power to have had 2 ships that we had sent after them later discovered as wreckage. The growing difficulty in making warp jumps is detrimental to us, but is unlikely to inconvenience those who engage in vile sorcery day in and day out, Heinrix sighs. After the events on Rykad Minoris, I suspected the cult must have built its nest inside Winterscale's domain, but the latest reports indicate it is your protectorate that is harboring heretics. Being in your entourage improves my chances of getting closer to their secrets. A chaos cult in my protectorate. Heinrix, are you laying an accusation against my dynasty? Chaos treads softly, Ophelia. The main danger of secret cults and sects is that they are like seeds. They can remain in the ground for decades, safe from all scrutiny, until an opportunity to sprout, grow, and bear monstrous fruit presents itself. The emergence of a cult on one of the rogue traders' planets does not mean the dynasty head herself is a chaos worshipper, but you could be. Having said that, it should be noted that Theodora von Valancius was famous for her loose interpretation of the freedoms granted by the warrant. Heinrix regards you with a probing look. A bloodline can be stained by ancestral transgressions. It is indeed so. It is in your best interest to do whatever necessary to redeem yourself, and then perhaps you will get a chance to salvage your dynasty's reputation. The Lord Inquisitor mentioned in his letter that he is willing to show lenience towards my actions that would otherwise be interpreted as radical. Heinrix nods. That is correct. I should show greater tolerance for the mistakes of a newly appointed rogue trader. To be frank, I am surprised. The Lord Inquisitor is not the type to indulge the weakness of soul and mind, even in someone who only recently accepted the burden of a lofty title. You have spies on the Van Valancius worlds? The person I mentioned is not a spy, but a secretary in the Ministorum Department on Darganus. The planet's governor and Theodora were fully aware of his status. His duty is to fulfill the sacred oath to the Golden Throne and eliminate threats to the Imperium, which the Coronis Expanse has in abundance. His name is Archelius Scalander. As soon as we contact... Every time I see a name, I'm just like, oh, God. Dargonus. As soon as we contact Dargonus, I will introduce you as the new head of the dynasty. I am sure you will appreciate the presence of such an advisor among your subjects, and I suggest you heed his words at least occasionally. I've already agreed to give you a place aboard my ship. What else? The rogue trader should deliver me to the system that contains the industrial world of Kivia Gamma. I will then accompany you to the surface and determine what the cult is planning and how it intends to use the resources that have fallen into their clutches, which may very well include the blessed engines of the Adeptus Mechanicus and even the followers of the Omnissiah themselves. I will be frank. The answer to this question is unlikely to please either of us. The machinations of chaos usually go beyond solely inflicting countless deaths and destructions. Having their plans come to fruition would lead to far more terrible consequences. One of the systems in the Coronis Expanse is already lost. May the Emperor protect us from watching this tragedy play out again. Let us assume Kevia Gamma has fallen to heresy. What then? Will you again propose we destroy an entire planet? Heinrix stares you down. On Rykad Minoris, you made a decision that sent billions of souls into the grasp of the archenemy. An unreasonable and unforgettably high price for a small handful of people saved by your mercy. Do I consider it a worthy exchange? I most certainly do not. Will I make every effort to make sure such an exchange does not happen again? Of course I will. Sentimentality is a luxury I cannot afford. I do not believe you lack compassion. You did not stop me, after all, although you certainly could have tried to. The interrogator's eyes narrow. I haven't said I would not like to be able to afford such luxury. In fact, deep down I understand why you act that way. I have yet to eliminate the understanding and acceptance within myself, but I will. Why did your suspicion fall on Kivia Gamma? Disjointed pieces of data that finally merged into a single picture. Additionally, not long ago a vessel from that world arrived on footfall. The reports from the crew were confused and alarming, making me fear a planet-wide rebellion. We met a Chaos Space Marine on Rykad Minoris. Do we risk running into his brothers? I have no doubt it will happen sooner or later, Ophelia. Chaos Marines siding with the cult is very, very bad news. Most likely they kept away until recently, pulling their puppet strings from a respectable distance. These traitors seldom show up alone. The best we can count on is having to deal with just a squad of Chaos Space Marines in the Coronis Expanse, and not an entire company. I won't let anyone throw their weight around on my worlds, be they servants of Chaos, Xenos, or heretics. A commendable aspiration for a person who holds the fate of billions of people and dozens of Imperial worlds in her hands. Which is why you need to be ever more vigilant when looking for seeds of corruption on your planets, lest they sprout someday and spell doom for whatever is tangled up in their roots. That is enough discussion about the archenemy's servants. Tell me about the Drukari who stole Rykad's son. Heinrix winces. The Drukari. One of their branches of the Eldari, an ancient and vicious Xenos race. Those creatures are a living terror to ordinary people who fall prey to their raids, for the simple reason the victims are not killed outright, but instead become their playthings. Just as you and I need air to survive, the Drukari require psychic energy born from torment and pain, which they extract from their captives with uncanny expertise. You also never die, by the way. The Drukari have, like, 3 main sects. The worst one is the homunculus. They don't let you die. They They bring you back over and over and over again. You never get to die. Yvette, you're lucky if you just get converted into a couch, you know? And you will be that couch for the rest of time. You don't want to get captured by the Drukhari. Their ships, which are difficult to mistake for any other, arrive suddenly and undetected. Their stealth technologies greatly surpass the capabilities of standard Imperium auger arrays. The objective of their raid is never to capture a world or a ship. No, they are only interested in fresh victims. After filling their holds with living captives, they disappear into the webway. Is this the first time webways come up? An extra-dimensional space, also known as the Labyrinth Dimension, which links worlds, sectors, and stars from one end of the galaxy to the other. It's basically their version of warp travel, except it's way, way safer than warp travel. You go through hell. The thing is with the Eldari and the Drukhari is that a long time ago, the Eldari were real hedonistic, and they accidentally made one of the 4 Chaos Gods, Slanesh, the god/goddess of excess. They're both. Him and her. So, you know, they don't like to interact with chaos as much as possible, seeing as Slanesh now permanently has hold of their souls. They deal with this 2 different ways. The Drukhari don't die because they take energy out of people suffering. The Eldari, however, have these devices that, like, catch their souls as soon as they die and holds them, so that they don't immediately go to Slanesh. So they don't like to fuck with the warp, so it's good for them that they can go through the webway instead, because if they had to go through the warp, they would just be like a giant fucking beacon for Slanesh when they get in there. Anyway, webway's way better. The Emperor was trying to get in there at one point, but one of the Primarchs did something real bad, which is probably too long of a story. But all you need to know is one of the Primarchs fucked up real bad, and so that didn't work out. A different dimension which conceals their greatest stronghold, Camorra, the dark city of the Drukhari, from which none can hope to escape. Heinrix studies your expression. I do not know why the Drukhari stole Rykad's son and brought about the fulfillment of the cult's prophecies. Perhaps the Xenos themselves have played into the archenemy's designs. The thing is, though, is that you would expect that to be Slanesh, but they aren't really a scheming one, but they're the ones that are, like, most interested in the Drukhari. Like, Tzeentch is the one you would expect to do this kind of plan, but I wouldn't really expect him to use the Drukhari to do it, but I guess Tzeentch will do whatever the fuck as well. Whatever, there's not much point speculating, I guess. Chaos is fucking weird. Anyway, all we know is it definitely wasn't Khorne. Or perhaps Aurora's divinations, in fact, described the Drukhari's actions. There's only one thing I can say with absolute certainty. There is no alliance between the Cult of the Final Dawn and the Xenos. It is simply impossible. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it is extremely unlikely. The Drukhari would need a really good reason to do it. I must go about my business. Is there anything else I need to know? Let me put it this way. You may think whatever you want of me, but my goal is not to hinder you. I am here to help you in the fight against foes you may not even be aware of. You have my word that I will provide every assistance in uprooting the heresy that has sprouted on the Van Valancius worlds while their mistress was away, and that I will try to be more patient with the less grievous flaws the bearers of the warrant are sometimes known to have. Heinrix inclines his head. Thank you for sparing me the time, Lord Captain. Great. Oh, you didn't take me back to the bridge. God damn it. Ugh. I gotta walk all the way back over. So we gotta talk to Jai still. And then we should probably go around and talk to everybody, because they probably do have a lot of companion dialogue that I haven't been going through. There she is.
Allow me to thank you again for helping me with the cargo, Sherin. I am sure the Ashmags who squirreled away my goods won't give up so easily, and I'll hear more about their scheming yet. Let's strike a deal, Sherin. I will watch your back, if you do me a favor and watch mine. Well, enough jokes. Is there something you wanted?
Was there some business you wish to discuss?
Oh, Shireen, I did manage to spark your interest. Allow me to invite you to a more private place. My words are meant for your ears alone.
Let's go. Okay. Oh. Little bit off there, that's okay. The flickering light of dozens of candles plays across Jai's face, making her small smile appear even more mysterious. Shireen, the Exalted One himself brought us together the day that you crossed Vladium's threshold. He led us to the cargo and gave his blessing in return. Do you know what people on my world say when such a thing happens? What's gained is to be shared with your neighbors. She points at the containers in front of her. One contains a polished Eldari rifle, a rare model, and the other holds an ornate sword. I'm sharing what I've gained with you. Please accept these humble gifts in honor of our wildly successful, though suddenly struck, friendship. A truly wonderful gift. I accept it with gratitude. I knew you would appreciate the Xenos mastery of their craft. Jai beams at you, curling a lock of black hair around an augmented finger. After a brief pause, she awkwardly continues. So, the matter that I wanted to discuss with you is related to my business. You know that I sell Xenos artifacts to interested Imperial subjects and Imperial trinkets to Xenos. Business is going well. My network runs even without my participation. But when it comes to expansion, well, that is where I hit a wall. Rivals, envious of my success. Jai throws up her hands. Falco especially. I'm certain the theft of cargo was his doing, but I can never predict what that Ashmag will do next. And while the Imperium's authority may be fragmented in the expanse, it could crack down on people of my profession at any moment. Go on. If the rogue trader put in a good word for me with the servants of the Adeptus Administorum, I could become an official trade representative of the Imperium. Just imagine it. A little scrap of paper will offer me and my agents protection against Ashmag schemes, far better than any refractor field. And even the Inquisition will have to think twice before they mess with me, because I'll be representative of the law in my own right. The Inquisition wouldn't care. They only care if it involves the Mechanicus, because they are much, much, much too important to upset. They wouldn't really give a fuck about some representative of the Administorum. And the best part of all of this will cost you precisely nothing, Shireen. All you have to do is stop by the Administratum Palace and obtain a certificate from the Master of Seals. My informants tell me the palace is located on Darganis, your capital world. You see how everything is aligned so wonderfully, and of course, I will repay you in kind. That sounds simple enough. I will help you. Exalted One bless you, Shireen. I couldn't find a better business partner in all of the expanse. Jai ponders for a moment and then graces you with a dazzling smile. Friendship is a gift from the Exalted One, and we must cherish it. And you will have no complaints about our friendship, Shireen. I may not be a trade representative of the Imperium just yet, but I can still help you with whatever you need. You must have some faction in mind that you would like to establish relationship with. The severe Darusians, the hot-headed pirates of the Casbalica. You merely need to use the right words, like a lock key for a lock, and people will open their hearts to you, or their wallets. I'll arrange everything. You merely have to ask. The Adeptus Mechanicus, they are the partners I need now. Not a problem, Shireen. I'll have my people put in a good word for you in the right circles. I'll humbly wait until you steer the vessel toward Dragonus, the Marketum Tabula Officiale. It sounds almost as majestic as the Warrant of Trade. Alright. Now let's do some companion housekeeping and go talk to all of them. Seeing as we never did that. We're playing an RPG and we haven't exhausted all the companion dialogue. What the fuck?
To what do I owe this visit?
I know nothing about you, Heinrix. Could you tell me a little about yourself?
I'm usually the one interested in the pasts of those around me, not the reverse. I come from a night world, Guizorn III. I belonged to a branch of one of the noble houses until my exceptional abilities were discovered. After that, I was sent on a black ship to Holy Terra, where I was trained, and I began my service for the glory of the Imperium.
Night World. Feudal worlds that are home to ancient noble dynasties trained to pilot the engines of war called Imperial Knights. The big robots, which are known to have exceptionally picky machine spirits. Black Ship. The dreadful Imperial void ships that transport psychers given up by numerous worlds as part of their tie to the Imperium. Do you remember your home planet?
I do, but I have no ties to my homeworld now. None except my first name. I left Guizorn III when I was still a child. My family disowned me, stripping me of my family name. I was given a new one by those who trained me. Even for a noble, being branded a psyker is a mark of eternal shame. I experienced that firsthand before I was put on the Black Ship.
How did you discover your abilities?
Like many psykers unaware of their curse, I found out when a strong emotional reaction triggered an involuntary response. My great-aunt had a pet grink. One day, it bit me, and I boiled it from inside out. And when my great-aunt slapped me for what I'd done, I boiled her too.
I don't know what I'm more surprised by. The absurdity of this story or the fact that you're capable of a show of such emotion.
I don't consider raw emotions to be a necessity in everyday communication. But let me assure you that I am more than capable of anger. Fortunately for others, I learned to focus it. Properly measured rage reveals the full potential of combat psychana, in much the same way as aged cheese reveals the notes of a mature amasek.
Tell me about the Black Ship.
Picture a vast prison ship, filled with frightened, angry psychers who can't control their abilities and who have just lost their homes and their families. Some of them were children and adolescents like I was. Some were monstrous creatures who no longer had the right to be called human, or psychopaths who reveled in their impure powers. Once, when one of the miscreants broke free, those in command simply depressurized the bay and got rid of the culprit, along with the prisoners and crew tainted by him. But even after that, I heard the echo of inhuman suffering and terror that filled that part of the ship. It grieves me to recall that episode to this day.
You do not want to end up on one of the Black Ships. You were sent to the Inquisition straight after training?
No. First, I was accorded the status of a psyker fit for service in the Imperial Guard, where I then spent several years. It was only afterward that I became an agent of the Golden Throne.
Let's talk about something else. How long have you served in the Inquisition?
Since the day of my initiation as an acolyte. So, decades. How many real years it's been, it's hard to say. When I return from a journey through the warp, I often discover that much more or much less time has passed in real space.
You visited many worlds during your service, I'll wager.
Indeed. I have visited many of the places brought to the Emperor's light, and those sullied by the filth of the archenemy. In truth, even after all these years spent visiting the various corners of the Imperium and looking beyond its borders, I still consider the Segmentum Solar to be the greatest of all humanity's bastions. Nothing compares to the majesty of Holy Terra, the might of Mars, the grandeur of the segment's other worlds.
I'm gonna keep it real with you, Chief. Terra is kind of a shithole, but that's besides the point. What duties have you been carrying out for the Inquisitor?
You can't really be expecting me to answer that question, can you?
Fair enough. For someone who's been in service for decades, you certainly look young.
The first step for biomancers such as myself is to take control of the processes of their own body, including aging. I've endured innumerable hazards in my work. If I allowed every trace of them to remain, I would look completely different today.
Let's change the subject.
Gladly.
You're not the Inquisitor's only acolyte, correct?
Of course not. The Lord Inquisitor's entourage comprises dozens of people. The best of the best. Experts in various fields and disciplines. Some of them I know personally. Others I've never met.
This is the cool thing about stories that kind of revolve around an Inquisitor, is they usually have like a pretty cool like circle of buddies around them. It's usually a pretty interesting group of people.
To be honest, I'm not even certain that the people I know are still alive. I used to work with other acolytes of the Lord Inquisitor, but in the Coronis Expanse, I've been working alone.
Wandering around among the stars without family or friends, don't you get lonely?
I had never even considered such a thing before you asked. Perhaps I do. Sometimes.
I don't want to fuck Heinrix. I'm not a bad conversation partner, should you ever want company.
Perhaps. When we both find a suitable time.
I chose the one that seemed less charged, and I just got an achievement for starting a romance quest. God damn it. No! Not him! Anyway. If you're an interrogator, does that mean you hold a special position in the retinue?
We are not a retinue. We are acolytes. As for your question, I am closer than anyone else to the one I call my personal teacher. The Lord Inquisitor deemed me worthy of undertaking the most important and sensitive tasks requiring the attention of agents of the Golden Throne.
This guy's voice actor is really good as well. You can hear the expression on his face. You know what I mean? Are there other acolytes in the Coronis Expanse? The interrogator narrows his eyes at you and releases a disappointed sigh. After several seconds of silence, you realize that you will not be getting an answer. Let's talk about something else. I want to discuss the Cult of the Final Dawn. What can you tell me about it?
The cult's ordinary members are humans who have been corrupted by the archenemy, traitors to the Imperium, and accomplices of chaos. Participation in the cult's rituals always entails brainwashing, literally and figuratively. The longer cult members spend among other cultists, the less critically they think, and the more closely they resemble obedient livestock, stripped of their fear and instinct for self-preservation. The worst of them go to their deaths without an inkling of doubt, ready to take hundreds and thousands of souls with them. As for those at the top of the cult's hierarchy, we have not yet managed to get a lead on all of the cult's leaders. I imagine that some of them are hiding in the depths of the Coronis Expanse, but those who are orchestrating the fanatics on nearby worlds are hiding very well indeed, or receiving protection from above.
What do you mean, protection from above?
Governors, commanders, rogue traders. History is full of those who neglect their duty to the Golden Throne and seek allies in the wrong places.
It is always like 80% odds that the planetary governor is going to end up being corrupt. It just always happens. Usually to Slaanesh as well. Well, I guess I shouldn't say usually. That's the one I associate the most with governors, anyway. Remind me, what is your mission regarding the cult?
I need to confirm the reports from my agents. According to them, one of the cult's leaders is in the Kiava Gamma segment, an industrial world within the dominion of the Von Valancius dynasty. I hope you won't impede my investigation.
You seem to have been investigating this cult for some time.
We discovered the first traces of it as soon as we arrived in the Coronis Expanse. Since then, the more we learn, the better we see just how far the roots of this blight extend. Destroying individual cells is pointless. We must cut this beast off at its head.
Let's talk about something else.
As you wish.
What can you do as a psyker?
The Lord Inquisitor was most insistent that I master the discipline of Santic Demonology. I use my faith and my power to crush the enemies of the Imperium. Servants of Chaos tremble at the sound of the Emperor's name, uttered by my lips. I am also a skilled biomancer. I can manipulate bodily processes. Sometimes I resort to those skills in the course of my work, when it is necessary to make the subject of an interrogation more cooperative.
Love the fact you could just go, oh yeah, can you black bag Idira for me? Alright. Next, let's go talk to Jai. Pascal was down there? Yeah.
May the Exalted One protect you. Have you grown bored with our little talk, Shireen?
You don't look like a typical smuggler.
No truer words have ever been said. I'm far more exciting than some small-time peddlers from Footfall. Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Jai Amira Fatqin Tamiri Ash Ifrit, the 12th daughter of the Lord of Ifrit, a distant world at the fringes of the Imperium.
Thank God that was a voiced text box.
The youngest child is destined to become a bargaining chip in the family's political games. But I was unwilling to accept such a fate, and wanted to choose what to become and which path to follow. When I learned the Exalted One watches over hundreds of other worlds amidst distant stars, I understood there was an entire world of opportunities beyond Ifrit. All I had to do was break the familial bonds tying me down and escape the planet. Which I did a long time ago.
Why did you choose to come to the Coronis Expanse?
The Coronis Expanse. A gorgeous name, isn't it? But this backwater wasn't my original destination when I escaped, Shireen. Oh no, it was the rumors of incredible freedom that brought me to the Coronis Expanse. Freedom that is generously bestowed upon everyone who can survive in these parts. All doors are open here. You can become a saint, a mogul, a kingmaker, or anyone you like, really. Here, hard work pays off. Unless you're used to lying by the roadside and complaining instead of toiling for the good of your soul, glory, wallet, or whatever floats your boat. I'm used to working hard, and so I found my blessing.
I've noticed, hey, there's a typo in here. Fucking unplayable. How did you escape from Ifrit?
I convinced my father I personally wished to oversee the inspection of imported goods. I had to get experience so I wouldn't bring shame on our family, didn't I? I made friends with traders, missionaries, and soldiers at the port. I listened to their stories, studied the charts, learned what documents I had to forge to escape the planet. A kind word here, a shiny coin there. And here I am, in the iron belly of a ship, braving the void in search of a new life.
Judging by your implants, you've had quite a few close shaves over the years.
Consider it a mark of my trade. This year, Xenos. Dumb-headed orcs. Who knew that we weren't the only ones to get tempted by the wreck of that raider? As for this treasure, I received it as a reward for a life that had been just a little too good. I was in a hurry to get to the Adeptus Amasacus after the Exalted One blessed me with immense wealth. I was 2 backstreets away from the den when a pathetic ashmag attacked me, envious of somebody else's fortune.
You are familiar with implants like the one that has replaced Jai's neck. It is merely one part of a massive augmentation replacing the internal organs. A slit throat could not have been the cause for installing such a sophisticated device. Thank you for sharing this.
All relationships are based on mutual trust. That goes for business too.
Tell me about your background. I get Oz the same. Never
All
mind.
relationships are based on mutual trust. That goes for business too.
I've seen enough of the shiny wrapping of the Coronis Expanse. Tell me about its dark side.
The dark side is the real Coronis Expanse, if you ask me. But what do you want to know about it, Shireen?
How do they do things on Footfall?
Dynasties drink with criminals. Rogue traders strike deals with the Casbalica. And dozens of ships stop off for a welcome break from a long voyage. Is there a more beautiful place in the entire Imperium? The Emperor is merciful to the meek and the powerful alike. There's a job for everyone as long as they have a head on their shoulders. And if you feel like talking to him in person, the statue of the Exalted One can be seen from any asteroid. You can pray to your heart's content.
Tell me about the Casbalica mission.
An ancient crime cartel that originated with the first settlers of the Calixis sector. It is run by shadowy clans with robber barons at the helm. Cross their path, and you risk making enemies all over the Coronis Expanse, or even the entire Imperium. As for the agents, they are just shameless, greedy scum. Every third person on Footfall is a Casbalican. But that doesn't mean all that rotten filth is acting together. I've been set up more than once just so some Casbalican can get one over on his rivals. And yet, the Casbalica is generous to its customers, if you can afford it. Anything can be obtained, organized, and transported for the right price. The customer is always right, unless they happen to be a rat. In which case...
Scum, rotten filth, rats. It's almost as if Jai's mask briefly slipped off and she started using words that have no place in the vocabulary of someone from the upper strata of the Imperium. Are you one of the Casbalica robber barons?
What gave you such an outrageous idea? Was it my immaculate garment? My gorgeous jewelry? Do not worry, Shireen. I will let you know once I become a baroness, should the Exalted One will it. Just imagine the strong and fruitful alliance that could be forged between a rogue trader and a mastermind of the Casbalica.
How did you become a Casbalican agent?
It's not hard to do on Footfall. I spent a year working for good old Christo. He was a brave soldier who gave up the ghost in a scuffle with orcs, and then took over his business. Having a good head on your shoulders and keeping the Exalted One in your heart helps to establish new contacts quickly. Eventually, I gathered together a group of honest and loyal people, and it only took a few successful contracts for the Casbalica to take notice. I quickly settled on Footfall and started dispensing my wisdom to my protégés and subordinates. I lost the taste for getting my hands dirty.
Tell me about the coal trade.
It really is simple, Sherry. The Casbalica runs the Imperium's black market, offering special goods to those who can afford their services. Yes, I am talking about Xeno artifacts too. Alien weapons, technology, sometimes even certain kinds of living creatures. Unlike the rogue traders whose sacred warrants make them immune even from the laws of the Exalted One, Casbalican agents are used to hiding and covering their tracks. Nobody wants to draw unwanted attention, no matter who might take an interest. Especially now that the Coronis Expanse has a warrior of the Golden Throne as its watchman.
Let's change the subject.
Why not? The decision is yours, Sherry.
You're telling me tales about your colorful past, Jai, but I feel not all of these stories are true.
Listen, Shireen, the giver of happiness and the dearest of my friends. I am who I am. A coal trader, a Casbalican agent, and your partner. We each have a past, and that past is sealed. I'm not prying into your soul, am I? Well, have pity on mine. It has already been gnawed at by the Aji. And if you don't like the sound of that, we'll just go our separate ways. Deal?
Alright.
All relationships are based on mutual trust. That goes for business too.
Tell me about your business in the Coronis Expanse.
My trade means knowing the right people and non-people. Having the right connections and making sure the precious goods find their way into the hands of my no less precious customers. My wisdom includes the knowledge of the enemies of humankind, be they Xenos or the lowest scum of the Imperium, as well as the latest knowledge about how they charge for any particular curio at the Footfall Market. Not even the most cunning Aji will deceive you as long as I am with you, Shireen. I promise you that. Whatever I have can be yours too, if your unfathomable wealth isn't enough for you already, I mean.
Do you do business with the enemies of humanity?
It has been known to happen. After years of dealing with Xenos, I've learned their customs, and even got a grasp of their language. Except they cringe whenever I start speaking. Arrogant sods. They dislike even our voices, but they never turn away our valuables. Then again, I'm used to seeing sour faces. In this trade, the easily offended go out of business.
The things we do for profit and gain, right?
Emperor be praised. You took the words right out of my mouth.
You have many talents.
Thank you, Sherry. Being able to read and write is chief among them. You may not be aware, But this science is beyond the abilities of billions of the Imperium subjects. And yet they happily keep drudging along in their factories, fundi, and assembly lines. Me? I didn't escape Ifrit to consign myself to such misery. It was literacy that paved my path to copied orders, forged signatures, counterfeited papers. The wonderful things that make the wheels of bureaucracy turn in the right direction.
Are you really that rich?
Compared to the rabble on footfall, perhaps. Compared to you. Be it power or money, I still have a long way to go. I could purchase one of Footfall's asteroids, but not a planet. I could subjugate a few gangs from the shady districts, but not Vladaya. And so the answer to your question is no. I do not consider myself rich. I am not rich enough.
You could be sitting back reaping the fruits of your own work, so why have you chosen to embrace the vicissitudes of life aboard a void ship?
You're fun to talk. I grew tired of scribing endless contracts and agreements neatly tucked away on Footfall. Well, I did that for how many years? But here, among the stars, you are always balanced on a knife edge. Nothing thrills me more than the tension of a warp jump, or the danger that lurks around every corner on a planet. Footfall was beginning to make me fat and stupid, Shireen. I do not want that.
Jai speaks measuredly, with just the right amount of laziness in her voice, but her performance cannot conceal the slight tremble in her voice. Whatever Jai is afraid of, this is what drove her off Footfall. What about your gang that stayed back at Footfall? Do you trust them?
Do I trust the Trickster twins? By the Exalted One, no. The underhanded rogues of Footfall came up with that name for a reason. The tricks of those frenzied ashmags are all about things far more intriguing than the honest and law-abiding subjects of the Imperium can imagine.
The mention of her fellow coal traders makes Jai's eyes shine a bit brighter than usual.
On the other hand, this is why I am keeping them close. Kor and Tora know who lifted them out of the cesspit proudly called the Shadow Quarters, and who has been feeding that ravenous beast their insatiable lust for lucre. No, they are not going to betray me if only because they know I am now a part of your entourage, Shireen. They're not going to let the biggest pie in the Imperium pass them by without trying to get a slice for themselves.
Tell me about the Xenos in the Coronis Expanse.
Vicious, cruel, dangerous beasts. Humans hold little interest for Xenos. We are entertainment for them, a means to keep boredom at bay. A commodity. But some of them contact us once in a while using their own people. Do not deceive yourself by thinking you are safe because there are no Xenos in sight. Those Agi are as cunning as they are ruthless. They cleverly pull at the strings of spies and traitors, subjugate those who do not fall for the promised reward, transform the ones who resist their promises into soulless puppets. The Emperor watches over me, and that is why I still haven't succumbed to the fate of many of my associates who have lost their lives to the stringy scoundrels.
Let's talk about something else.
I think we've said all there is to say on this topic.
Did you know Theodora van Valancius, my predecessor?
It is difficult not to be aware of the powers that be, especially ones like Lord Captain Theodora. But we never met personally, as the difference between our positions was far too great. Theodora was a mighty ruler, the center of her own universe. And I, a pathetic commoner, was nothing next to her. But you were kind to me, Shireen. And in my eyes, that puts you above your esteemed aunt, or whoever she was to you.
Now for the good one. You must forgive my prying, but has the esteemed princess's heart been claimed by some lucky fellow?
Or lucky lady, you mean? My heart has been coveted by proud men with hard eyes, gentle maidens with sensual voices, imperious lords and fierce leaders of void brigands. Only rogue traders have not yet featured among Jai Hedari's intimate friends. Why do you ask, Shireen?
I enjoy being with you. I would like to spend more time together.
Oh, Shireen. With a few words, you have managed to make my heart flutter like a songbird caught in the snare of a skilled hunter. You enjoy being with me. Perhaps you even find me amusing? Every girl dreams of hearing that she will make a fine toy and a worthy diversion.
I do not see you as a toy, I just like you.
I understand. I'm just having a little fun, Sherin. I can't possibly just say, oh, I like you too. Words as dry and dull as a voiceman's dinner. They are unworthy of us. If you are not simply amusing yourself by toying with my feelings, then why not give it a try? Go on. Or, wait. You haven't yet asked how I feel about being your romantic partner. Ask soon, Sherin.
My dazzling one, can I trust that you hold in your heart at least the smallest drop of regard for me?
I simply cannot reject so ardent an admirer. To insult such sincere passion would be a wicked act in the eyes of the exalted one.
What do you say you go into my chambers right now? I have a pool for oblations, incidentally.
Certainly not, Sherin. That would be too fast. In the anticipation and the game lies one of passion's great delights. There is a fine art to stirring it up like boiling promethium and releasing it before it explodes. But the reward is sublime. I value your company too much, Sherin, to leave this dish untasted just so I can greedily delve into dessert. But do you value me enough to wait?
Fair enough. I'm inviting you to dinner. Over some decent wine, I'm sure we shall find a fertile topic of conversation.
I have no doubt that you are a wonderful conversationalist, Sherin. I will make a note of your invitation and make sure to take you up on it when I next get hungry. But if the feelings in your soul have become a fire that is burning you up from within, then you may express them by bestowing a gift upon your humble servant. Is there a sweeter subject in the universe to discuss, Sherin? You have my full attention.
It's a bit of a sudden, abrupt one, isn't it? Do you like being with me?
Ask the rose if it likes to receive the kisses of the sun every morning. Ask the sand dune if it likes to feel the caressing and playful touch of the wind. Ask and hear my answer, Sherin.
I have nothing
Then
to
let
add.
us both be silent together about this beautiful feeling, Sherin.
You keep using words I don't understand, like calling me Shireen.
The language on Ifrit, my home world, is quite different from the one spoken in the Coronis Expanse. We bestow more than one meaning upon each word, allowing our wise men to fully express their sagacious thoughts, and us lowly commoners our base passions and desires. Take Agi, for example. That is what I call every piece of scum and villain, because Agi means evil and foe and pathetic worm unworthy of consideration. Or take Ashmag. It means fool and little brother, and blind man who stumbled and would fall into a pit without guidance. Sherin means friend and comrade and roommate in a battle formation, like we are.
I'll see you later.
Oh, I have no doubt you will.
Pascal, you're next.
The Messiah knows all, comprehends all.
I doubt you have expertise in this, but what gifts do you think I could give Jai?
Given the high status of the unit von Valancius and her services rendered to the Adeptus Mechanicus, perhaps a request for special leniency for the unit Jai Hidari. The sentence of oblivion without servitorization that is stipulated for her crimes may instead be commuted to immediate redemptive servitude in perpetuus.
This doesn't seem like a great gift, Pascal, I'll be honest with you.
Then, hypothetically, in time she would be able to compensate for a small portion of the sacrileges she has committed against the Omnissiah. It would be a most generous gift. However, this act of mercy is not advisable, for it is undeserved.
Fucking amazing text box. I want to know more the truth about you.
The request is approved. I did conceal certain information. Incubus Amanat, but I committed an act of betrayal after he deviated from sacred dogma.
Ugh. Disgusting. What did Amaranth do?
He fell into schism and challenged the sacred boundaries of knowledge. The blessed Amanat claimed the limits of what is permitted must be expanded, because by refusing to explore certain law, we find ourselves in contempt of the seventh universal law. Comprehension is the key to all things.
Universal law, the sacred commandments observed by all followers of the cult Mechanicus. Yes, there's exactly one person in the Adeptus Mechanicus that's allowed to invent new things, and that's Belisarius Call. Incidentally, everyone thinks he's a heretic, so this is an unsurprising reaction to Amernat.
My mentor put forth a thesis claiming that we have stagnated, that ritual is now nothing but a cage for souls and false worship of the Omnissiah. He sought to break the cycle of mindless repetition because he saw the inevitable demise of our faith and all humanity at the end of it.
That seems like a theological argument, not a political one.
Even those who have ascended to the Omnissiah's wisdom still bear the seed of imperfection, born of their flesh. But the ambitions of individuals mean little when we discuss ritual and belief. Knowledge is divine, and any argument as to how it must be reached is an argument of ritual and belief.
How did you betray Amernat?
The teachings of the blessed Amanat spread, and word of it reached the conclave of the Cognizance fleet. They recognized his teachings as tech heresy. Many tech priests suddenly vanished or were subjected to servo penance for minor transgressions. The students of Amanat, whose number included many enlightened and respected brothers, resisted. My prognosis showed that our most likely future was a schism and a fratricidal war that would destroy the Cognizance fleet. That was when I headed to the Conclave. I confessed and handed the information about my mentor's research over to the Conclave. Brazen, anathematic studies of the Forbidden Law. The Conclave could use that data to summon Archmagos Amanat to stand trial and compel him to repent on pain of excommunicate traitoris. His subsequent fate is unknown to me.
You acted as a loyal son of the Imperium should.
I pray that the Omnissiah grants us wisdom to overcome the dialectic differences that divide us.
Damn. That was surprisingly sad. So why did you go to Rykad Minoris?
I was summoned there by a message that was encrypted with the blessed Amanat's personal code, and could it be interpreted in several ways. One thing was certain: we were in danger, and I had to go to Rykad Minoris.
The tech priest named Abel, who is he?
Assessing his personality is difficult. The spirit of Brother Abel is different from that of most people. Tech comrades of the Cog call such persons quiet ones. He possesses significant intellect, but shuns communication.
I like how we have such mythology built up around an introvert.
So far, I have not been able to determine why Abel summoned me to Rykad Minoris, how he is related to the blessed Amanat, or why he bears the same name as me. Perhaps Reverend Abel may not be fully able to actualize and interpret the available data.
What are you going to do next?
I was wrong when I assumed it was the blessed Archmagos Amanat who assumed the guise of Abel Haneman. But there is a connection between him and the Reverend Abel, and I intend to uncover the nature of this link.
I have no more questions.
Acknowledged. I will return to ruminating on the search for the blessed Amanat.
Tell me more about the Adeptus Mechanicus.
I am honored to belong to the priesthood of Mars, guided by its tenets. We safeguard technology against the impure and the unenlightened.
Why did you mention Mars?
That is where the cult of the Omnissiah originated, and where we were granted the first revelations. Many millennia ago, we made an alliance with the Emperor of Terra, and have served the Imperium ever since, paying a tribute of machinery, weapons, and void ships.
This is the complicated part of the Mechanicus, is that they aren't technically part of humanity, they are just allies. And that's why the Inquisition treads lightly around them, because they could, theoretically, break off from the Imperium at any moment. And then they're completely fucked. The Imperium, that is. They need the Mechanicus way too much to ever piss them off.
Everything that bears the blessed seal of machinery comes from our hands, and it is we who make sure the operating rituals are performed as they were meant to. We are everywhere. We are the Mars-forged steel bars that give the Imperium strength.
What do you mean, guard it? It's not buried treasure, it's not a secret.
It is both a treasure and a secret. Technology is how the divinity of the Omnissiah manifests itself in this world. This is why the uninitiated may only be allowed to touch the most vulgar and mundane of its instances. We, on the other hand, are authorized to use the sacred catechism of maintenance and operation.
Holy shit. You got a lot of spirit in that one.
Although there is another reason to deny lay people the sacrament of knowledge, it can be dangerous. Twisted by renegades, the Omnissiah's wisdom is called heretic, and the exposure to it may corrupt the uninitiated. Another danger is knowledge strangely interpreted and inscrutably twisted by the minds of the Xenos. This bane is called Xenotech.
Banning things you cannot understand is the opposite of seeking knowledge. Technology is merely a tool that can be employed without risk by a wise wielder.
That is a bold hypothesis. And yet the Omnissiah teaches us that a dauntless mind can penetrate any knowledge through analysis, where the ignorant see heresy, the enlightened might see truth.
Do you hold a high position in your fraternity?
This electu indicates that I am a Magos, who has mastered the sacraments of many spheres of knowledge, and has the right to conduct services in a forged cathedral.
What is the Omnissiah, in your understanding?
He is the divine mechanism, the maker of technology. The universe was made to resemble a mechanical marvel, because the Omnissiah rules over it. Knowledge is the highest form that he uses to manifest in the world. For now. Someday, he will come to this world in the absolute fullness of his splendor. The Adeptus Mechanicus worship the Emperor. He is the earthly manifestation of the Omnissiah, who brought humanity into the light of divine grace.
See, this is some heresy right here. This is implying that the Emperor is not the god. This is more like saying the Emperor is like Jesus, rather than God, which the Inquisition wouldn't like, but, again, they're too important. What is behind the Adeptus Mechanicus' enthusiasm for replacing flesh with augmentation?
Organic tissue is an imperfect replica of the machine, transient and vulnerable. Metal is more stable, more effective, and more durable. Flesh speak is flawed next to my Heinrix language. Meat begets weakness. It softens the mind and undermines discipline. But you can replace metal when it wears down. In addition, A machine is a supreme form of knowledge, and by assuming mechanical form, we become closer to the Omnissiah.
Pascal's voice is kind of fucking me up, because obviously it's got a lot of, like, stuff over the top of it, but he sounds and talks a lot like a YouTuber I know. So it's starting to fuck me up a little bit, because he has, like, the exact opposite personality of Pascal.
However, like all things sacred, our augmentations must not be defiled by the eyes of the ignorant. Which is why we reveal only the crudest of tools, while holier mechanisms remain concealed beneath our crimson robes.
I am curious to see your augmentations. Let me see that dick.
The right to witness the miracle of flesh being fused with holy metal is granted only to those who have ascended to the rank of initiate. However, your lofty status of rogue trader allows me to make a partial exception and reveal my sacred stigmata.
Pascal reverently parts the robe's scarlet folds on his chest. You see emaciated white meat, gnawed through by metallic shunts and flexible wires. Blood runs through transparent pipes enriched with nutrients required by the pullid flesh. The sight of a body transformed into an appendage to an incredibly complex mechanism built using unfathomably ancient blueprints is mesmerizing. Every component of this machine serves the dual purpose of preserving life in Pascal's fragile flesh and preventing all threats to his well-being. The Omnissiah has been generous to you. His creation is keeping you safe from death.
The Omnissiah has been generous to you too. He has granted you understanding.
You have a strange way of speaking. Is that because of the augmentation, or does your faith dictate how you should express yourself?
Partially true. I had a voice modulator implanted alongside the respiratory purification module, but there is an additional reason. Gothic is not my first language. I am used to thinking and making statements in lingua technis. The binaric language is more informative, more ergonomic, and less prone to misinterpretation.
Fuck. A collection of dialects used by the Adeptus Mechanicus and its tech priest can be used as a spoken language with audio bursts or a machine code with electrical signals. I have no more questions.
Acknowledged.
This is still lit up. Is there something in
The
here?
request is approved. I have no outright restrictions on disclosing this information.
Where are you from?
Information about my origins is worthless. I belong to the priesthood of explorators and came to the Coronis Expanse over 200 years ago. Any events preceding that moment are insignificant.
How did you end up in the Coronis Expanse?
I was honored to become a member of the Explorator Cognizance Fleet. When the Adeptus Mechanicus summoned the faithful for an exploratory venture into the depths of the Coronis Expanse, I joined the fleet in fulfillment of my sacred vows of comprehension.
Why are you not with the fleet then?
After I betrayed Archmagus Amonat, the fleet conclave directed me to the orbital station, Alter Templum Calixus EXT-17, for penance. This venerable temple station was founded in the early years of our expansion into the Coronis Expanse. It is currently a rear observation post of the Cognizance Fleet in orbit around the star Furibundus.
Who are the explorators?
The sacred fraternity of explorers. The cult Mechanica sends us out to the frontiers of the known sectors as researchers and conquerors. We are the warriors of the Code, who return to the lost worlds and devote themselves to recovering the lost ancient knowledge. Explorators are granted the privilege of being more independent than many of our tech comrades. However, it has earned us a reputation as unstable and poorly controlled troublemakers whose unorthodox views are dangerously close to apostasy.
Tell me about your mechadendrites.
They are my younger brothers and guides on the way to the Omnissiah. Their machine spirits are directly bound to my neocortex and pick up impulses from my subconscious. Sometimes they act ahead of my thoughts. This is how the Omnissiah leads me to comprehension.
We can stop there.
Acknowledged.
I must take my leave.
May your labors be effective and fruitful.
So true, brother. Alright, who is next? Idira, it's you. The tall, middle-aged woman stares straight ahead, her eyes vacant as she rubs the implant at her temple. Her collar is undone, and one of the clasps is on the verge of falling off. Sensing your presence, Idira turns her head towards you and offers you a crooked smile, even as her eyes look right through you. Idira, about your abilities.
What are you talking about, Lord Captain?
You're a psyker. Psykers are only granted the right to live with the Emperor's blessing. Have you ever been to Terra?
Look, Lady Theodora couldn't care less if some eggheads measured my brains or not. It's not about the seal on your forehead, get it? It's about what's in your gut, if it's rotten or not. My gut's stronger than the adamantine on this here ship. And my implants are better than the ones they put in you on your Terra. If they weren't, I wouldn't have lived as long as I have.
You seem to have a very strong reaction to what Argenta said by the broken lens.
It was just my nerves playing up. Something about our little saint doesn't sit right with me, and I trust my gut. Oh sure, she seems straight as an arrow and as predictable as a hangover after drinking. But when I look at her, something about her makes my brain itch.
Trust me, there are no straight Sisters of Battle, but carry on.
After that conversation, I tried to listen to what was being said about her. Beyond the door, what I heard was strange. Blood in her past, twilight in her present, and something like a star leading her. But where is it leading her? I saw several roads, and all of them frightened me.
And what does it all mean?
If I knew, I would have told you. Hearing things clearly requires cooperation from the other person, you know. But that cobra just hisses and spits its venom at me. I don't trust her one bit.
Maybe we should warn Argenta.
Oh yeah, you go ahead and tell her the wicked Psyker has divined something about her. She'll be so pleased and grateful, and of course she'll listen to what you have to say. No, that would be pointless. And anyway, I'm not even sure what it all means. Maybe the danger is to her? Or maybe the danger's coming from her.
Idara's voice is full of amnesty, but you also detect concern, even a hint of pity and compassion. What kind of gift could I give Jai? What do you think?
Well, it would have to be something that screams, "Look how much the rogue trader loves me," in the faces of everyone she meets. Like a fabulous gown beyond anything that even the noble women of Dargonus can acquire. A princess of smugglers would love the opportunity to rub the nobility's noses in her newfound privileges.
Holy shit, her voice actor goes so hard, dude. Where do you come from?
Lyra, an outlying world in the Heathen Stars region. In the Coronis expanse, the deeper you go, the less visible the Astronomicon gets, and the less people know about the Imperium. The arrival of a rogue trader is the best thing that can happen to a world like that. The very best.
Tell me about Lyra.
It's an out-of-the-way planetoid between two faint stars. On Lyra, a dozen local tyrants fight over 5 measly continents. But they use everything they can to win, from poison to psychers. I haven't been there in many years, but there's nothing for me to miss. Trust me. But here on the ship is a different story altogether. I saw more wonders in my first year serving Lady von Valancius than I'd seen in my whole life on Lyra. Like my first journey through the warp, I was in bed for 3 days. I felt like supernovas were exploding in my head. I only found out later that I'd gotten off easy. Just through the bulkhead in the bay next to mine, a whole team turned into Look at me rambling on, Lord Captain. Pay no attention.
You never finished your story about your first time crossing the warp.
It wasn't like it was a very fun trip, Lord Captain. But look, if you want to be entertained, I'm the woman for the job. I'll entertain you with one of the stories from my collection, no problem. But if you want to hear about the time I melted everyone in the bay next door, well, I just don't really want to go into the details on that one, alright?
That's fair enough. What did you do before you came to be aboard my... What did you do before you came to be on the ship?
Oh, I embroidered wall hangings in honor of our national heroes. I did the same thing I do here, Lord Captain. Divining. Our rulers prized the ability to see into the future. Every psyker that could be found was worth a small fortune on Lyra. There's no such thing as a peaceful life on Lyra. People like me were especially sought after. They'd pick psychers up wherever they found them, buy kids off their parents, even just abduct them. Take me, for instance. I got taken from my street gang. The older kids sold me when they noticed there was something off about me. The ruling dynasties had schools where they trained us and beat us black and blue. And then they packed us off to serve. Some of us held on for a long time, but others didn't last. Not everyone's as smart and talented as me, you know. Some people crossed the line and were out of commission before their time.
How did you end up in the Rogue Trader's service?
Theodora von Valancius paid a visit to the ruler I was serving at the time. I don't know what the visit was for, and it's no business of mine anyway. I can still remember the way the voices in my head changed when I looked at her. They were practically screaming. She had so much behind her, and plenty ahead of her too. As I gawped at her, all of a sudden I heard a whisper. A hint, a suggestion, nothing more. But I know the difference between idle chatter and a real threat. I seized my chance and approached Theodora. I managed to whisper a couple of words in her ear before the wardens dragged me away. They beat me and locked me up. No wonder. It wasn't my place to converse with outsiders. And then Theodora's people came for me. They broke down the wall, butchered the guards. Also, I could tell them my warning in full. So I said the rest, but I didn't want to go back to my old life. And so I entered the service of the von Valancius dynasty.
This is a bit of a weird question, to be honest. Have you ever been off the ship?
A few times. Not many. And if I think about it, why would I want to? I've got everything I need here. All the whispers I hear are familiar ones. They almost feel like family. And if I want to hear about the nightmares off the ship, I can, after some Amisec. But don't go getting the wrong idea. If I have to, I'll follow you to the edge of the galaxy.
Let's talk about something else.
Of course, Lord Captain.
What's it like being a psyker?
Lord Captain, forgive me. But it would be like talking to a person born blind about colors. I could spend hours explaining, but it wouldn't make any sense to you.
That is fair enough.
Every psyker feels their connection with the warp in their own way. One person might see spots and shadows out of the corner of their eye. Another feels fingers running down their spine. As for me, I've got a door in my head. One that's open just a crack. There's no way to close it, no matter how hard I try. I've just had to get used to the whispers from the other side. When I need to use it for work, I listen in more closely. But I usually just try not to notice it.
How do you live with this whispering in your head?
Training, habit, and a little Amasec and a couple other things you can get on the lower decks. If you put all those together, it makes things bearable. Sometimes I even wonder if I'm imagining half the voices I hear. You know, when life on board gets a little boring. Better than listening to the living, anyhow.
What happens if your door bursts open?
Well, if the door opens, that means somebody's planning to come in, right? But screw them. They're not coming through. Trust me. I know how to keep my valuable head locked up tight.
Aren't you afraid of losing control?
Only losers who are afraid of their own gift lose control.
Fair enough.
Or idiots who never figure out what they are before it's too late. Or little kids who want to play around with their shiny new toy. If you don't know the limits of your abilities, or you're always bouncing around in your own head, that's a recipe for disaster.
Damn, that was an incredible answer. That's not really what I expected her to say. Can you see my future?
Alright. That's what I'm here for, after all. So, I'm just going to lean on that door in my head a little more, prick up my ears, and listen to what the warp's got to say about you. If you'll allow it, I can listen right now.
Sure.
Alright, let's hear what they're whispering about you.
Idira laughs, rubs her hands together, and suddenly freezes with a vacant smile on her face, her head slightly tilted. You feel goosebumps appear on your skin, and your collar begins to waver ever so slightly, as if moved by a breeze from a half-open door.
An ancient world with a riven heart. Find the path to it, and its riches will be yours. But paths there are two, and both will cloak you in disgrace, and neither is what it seems. What will you choose, rogue trader? The fall of the Empyrean, or the fall of the dead gods? In the cradle of your ancestors, a black dragon hungers, cunning and spitting venom. Many paths lead from home, but only one leads back to it, black and full of sorrow. When you start along the path, make haste. Make haste. Another road. The road begins at the threshold of the expanse and leads to the bowels of the emerging world. Reading the threads of fate is not meant for you, slave of the enthroned corpse. Step into the embrace of doom, for thus was it preordained by the architect of fates. That wasn't me. I swear on everything that's holy. I don't know what the second road is or who watches over it, but I beg you, stay away from it.
You got anything else to say?
Right. Let's hear. I'm sorry, Lord Captain. The voices are going wild. I can't make out a thing. I'll try to rein them in somehow, but for now...
Got a new story for me?
You bet I do, Lord Captain. Okay, so, we went to Footfall once? Well, I mean, Lord Captain Theodora went to Footfall a lot. But on that occasion, she took me with her for some reason. My day had gotten off to a bad start. My head had been yammering since I woke up, but there was nothing else for it. I had to go. We arrive at the place, and what a place! All the gentlemen and ladies dressed to kill, showing off their encrusted implants, all clustered around little tables. Well, turned out it was a gaming den. And not just any gaming den, but one run by somebody with deep pockets for people with just as much cash to splash. You should have seen it. People gambling away planets in a game of regicide. Anyway, so the Lord Captain wanted me to help her beat some guy. So I tell her, the chips won't land in your favor. You'll get a bad hand. Don't sit down at that table, your ladyship. But did she listen? Of course she didn't. If there's one thing she never lacked, it's stubbornness.
Regicide. A human tabletop game played across the Imperium of Men, similar to the ancient Terran game of chess.
So, they sat down and the cards were dealt. I'm hovering around like I'm not involved, but I'm keeping my eye on things. And everything in my head keeps getting louder and louder. Anyway, it's a good thing I realized in time that my mind wasn't going haywire over a losing hand, but something else. I made some excuse to drag the Lord Captain up from the table and took her away from that place. And a few minutes later, the room where we'd been... It turned out some wise guy had the same bright idea to bring a pet psyker along with him. One of those ones who just scuttle around in Footfall's underbelly. And the Psyker just freaked out, I guess. After all the commotion, people went to see what happened in the room. And they'd all gone for each other's throats. Literally. With teeth. And I think they completely detached that asteroid from Footfall and pushed it off into open space so it would head off toward the local star.
Did you know Theodora von Valancius well?
None of the officers knew the Lord Captain well. Not even Abelard, and she was always closer to him than anyone else. She told me from the off that if I ever listened to anything in the warp about her without her permission, I'd be going out through the airlock. I'm not an idiot, so I never stuck my nose where it didn't belong. Only when I was asked. It's hard to wrap my head around the fact that she's gone. Lady von Valancius gave me everything I have. She opened the stars to me and the paths between them. I still think I can hear her voice.
Things are strained between you and Argenta, isn't that right?
The little sister is afflicted with her own set of voices. Ones that whisper to her about corruption and heresy. The silly girl doesn't realize that if she wants to find the source, she needs to start by looking in her own head.
I must take my leave.
Of course. Always at your service. Whenever you need me. I'm sorry, Lord Captain. The voices are going wild.
What the fuck?
Of course.
Okay. Next up is Abelard.
Lord Captain,
Seneschal, what gift would you give to the girl you liked?
I used to give Genusian lilies to the girl I liked, but the species long since extinct. Now it lives only in my memory. Ask someone else, your ladyship. I am too old to remember how to charm young ladies.
Isn't he just a barrel of monkeys, dude? Let's talk about things that may be useful to me as the rogue trader.
A noble aspiration, Lord Captain. I am ready to acquaint you with all the particulars that interest you.
I feel like we already know all of this, but I guess I'll go through it anyway. Outline the situation in the Cronus Expanse for me. What do I need to know and keep in mind?
This is a topic for an official briefing, not a casual conversation. But I will try to answer succinctly. And if you permit, in my own words. The Cronus Expanse is considerably removed from the heart of the Imperium. This means that local warp routes become useless within months. Established pathways are regularly subject to attacks from all kinds of rabble. And in the only major port, the Imperium's frigates find themselves moored alongside pirate vessels. Until recently, the Cronus Expanse could hardly have been called a region of the Imperium. The situation has changed with the arrival of the Lord Inquisitor, but not by much. This place operates under its own rules, you see. More radical, so to speak. But ones that allow for a non-standard approach where there is a promise of victory. The Cronus Expanse is considered rogue trader territory for a reason. Only rogue traders have sufficient military might, audacity, and the rights granted them by the warrant to survive the leap into the unexplored part of the Expanse. And in the event of a successful outcome, to hold on to whatever they manage to capture on the frontier.
Who are the main players I need to be aware of in the Cronus Expanse?
In the first instance, you should treat official representatives of the Imperium with respect. The Expanse may be on the fringes, but it still numbers among the territories of the Golden Throne. The arrival of the Lord Inquisitor has turned the Cronus Expanse into a less wild and uncontrolled region, to the regret of some individuals who had grown inured to the local lawlessness. Rogue traders such as yourself are also servants of the Imperium. They have been accorded special rights and powers. They wield immense authority within their territory, and they enjoy absolute respect in other parts of the Expanse. The most powerful of them are Caligos Winterscale and Incendia Bastal Chorda. Tread carefully when dealing with either of them. If we are to speak of unclaimed territory, which is what Footfall is, among the scum that dwells on that handful of asteroids, there are 3 factions that wield considerable influence in the sector. The first is the Kazbala Commission, organized crime in its most primitive form. It holds sway over the Liege of Footfall, and has links to rogue trader Winterscale. The second faction is an offshoot of our shining ecclesiarchy, followers of St. Drusus. They are actively building their forces and hold influence over rogue trader Chorda. And finally, the third faction, the Explorators, a wing of the Adeptus Mechanicus. They are willing to die and kill for the secrets of the ancient technological heresies that are hidden among the stars of the Coronis Expanse.
Conrad, our previous Master of Whispers, what can you tell me about his betrayal? What do you think he'll do next?
You know, Lord Captain, I am no admirer of fine art. But when we next find ourselves in a civilized port, with time to spare, I will promptly find an artist and commission a portrait of the individual to whom you refer, with a hole between the eyes. Conrad Voigtveer. That he committed his treachery and escaped with his life was an unforgivable oversight. We both served Lord Captain Theodora for many years, and we never saw eye to eye. He was brash. He was never afraid of assuming responsibility, and he willingly took on difficult tasks. I am loath to admit it, but the von Valancius Protectorate continues to reap the fruits of his labors to this day. His service always garnered my respect. But everything else about him made me want to wring the neck of that two-faced snake. If you are taking comfort in the thought that we will hear no more of Conrad, prepare to be disappointed. You thwarted his plans, his meticulously plotted and nurtured treachery. He is sure to attempt to strike at you, and he will use his contacts and knowledge of the Protectorate to do so. The only question, Lord Captain, is whether you will be able to anticipate his next steps.
That is all for now.
As you wish, Lord Captain.
I'd like to know more about my seneschal.
As you wish, Lord Captain. What would you like to know?
Tell me about yourself. What were you before you became Theodora's seneschal?
I used to be an officer in the Navis Imperialis. No, I used to be is not quite right. It was not simply a job. It was my calling, the essence of my life. I was proud to serve Lord Captain Theodora, but in my heart and mind, I'm still an officer of the Imperium. I met Lord Captain Theodora on a mission where the Imperial Navy was providing reinforcement to the rogue traders' army on one of the frontier worlds. Our acquaintance was not easy. Working with people outside the Navy hierarchy has never been my strong suit. It was to my great surprise then, that after the mission's completion, I received a referral to leave my service in the Navy and join the rogue trader's personal capsule. It was a difficult choice for me. But I saw in the offer a chance to serve the interests of humanity even more effectively than in the Navis Imperialis. You do not need me to tell you just how remarkable a person Lord Captain Theodora was. I recognized her at once as a true leader and formidable creative force. One who had built a protectorate amidst the dangers and wildness of the Expanse.
Leaving the Imperial Navy is far from easy. Why were you permitted to quit your post? It's because it was a rogue trader, but...
You could say there was no one among the naval command who was willing to impede the wishes of the rogue trader. To do so would be to risk their own position and their relationship with Theodora. Well, the Lord Captain possessed certain contacts in the Imperial Navy. Contacts which she used to request help during the conflict on the border world. And which enabled her to make me an offer that resulted in my joining her retinue. The Navis Imperialis is an ancient institution with its own mandates and muster lists. On occasion, in the heat of an official briefing, or an informal discussion, I violated those rules, determined to press my point. It is challenging to choose the words to accurately express my opinion on a situation or the actions of others that do not sound overly scathing or confrontational. Many in command were inclined to view my manner of speaking as unbefitting a person of my rank.
I can definitely see where you would get that impression, yes. The way you talk about Theodora, I'm beginning to think you were in love with her.
What? Lord Captain, any allegations of improper feelings or unsanctioned relations are utterly baseless and bordering on the insulting. Utterly baseless.
Uh-huh. Do you have a family?
I am a widower. I am a father of 4. and if my information is not outdated, a grandfather of 11. My family lives on Dargonus. None of my children express any eagerness or aptitude for serving aboard ship, and I would hardly have insisted that they follow in my footsteps.
Thank you, I have no more questions.
Of course.
You may call me by my first name if you wish.
I thank you for the honor, but I must decline. As a former military officer, I believe in the importance of order in all things, including the chain of command. You are the Lord Captain, my direct superior. I am not prepared to address you in any way other than as regulation dictates.
I must take my leave until next time, Seneschal.
Lord Captain.
That was a surprisingly short one. Let's see. Argenta... and Cassia after that.
Lord Captain, your presence is welcome. And I wish to apologize for my prior coldness. After our first meeting, I was concerned that he would turn out to be another faithless offshoot of the von Valancius dynasty, like the traitor Conrad. But now I see before me a worthy leader and servant of the Imperium. I am glad to accompany you in your endeavors.
What kind of gift do you think I could give Jai?
If you want to do her good, give her a dose of conscience and a fear of the Emperor. That is what she truly needs. But if you want to please her, give her some meaningless jewelry, expensive and shiny. Such baubles wield magical power over hearts like hers.
Everyone is so useless when you ask them that question, dude. Goddamn. Tell me about the Adeptus Sororitas.
Gladly. There are none more faithful to the God Emperor than my sisters. We fight against his enemies by the will of the Holy Ecclesiarchy. I beg your pardon, rogue trader. Here I am talking about what every lesser noble in the Imperium knows. So what exactly are you interested in hearing about?
They say the Adeptus Sororitas are the fiercest in their faith among the warriors of the Imperium. Is it true? Yes. They literally drop churches from lower orbit and blast battle hymns from orbit. So, you know, their tanks look like cathedrals. They're pretty into it.
It is. The Sisters of Battle are a fire lit by the God Emperor. They are the echo of his voice that travels through the dark expanses of the universe. We bring his wrath to heretics, mutants, and other enemies of humanity. We protect the faithful from the unholy and unhallowed. Sometimes with words. More often than not with a bolter.
Are all sisters truly as faultless as you say? No. Like, several of their units are based entirely around the fact they're disgraced. There's the Repentia, who go into battle naked, pretty much, to repent, as you may assume. Interestingly, some people deliberately commit crimes to get labeled as a Repentia, because there are certain, like, important figures that redeemed themselves from being Repentia and then became very important. So some will actually do it as seeing it as, like, a stepping stone. But then there's also, like, I've forgotten exactly what they're called, but they, like, strap sinners into, like, this mech, and it just makes them feel bad for a really long time, and then basically until they die. It's where prisoners get sent. And then there's this other mech, which is specifically for sisters that have become completely irredeemable, basically. Where they're basically mummified, then strapped inside this metal sarcophagus, and then strapped to a mech. And, you know, that just makes them feel bad. They put implants in them so that they feel unending anguish, pretty much. And they're specifically put into this, like, sarcophagus so that it's really hard for them to die, so that they suffer for as long as possible. And the machine is basically just powered by their anguish of their their past evil deeds. So, you know, they're pretty much like the Catholic Church, anyway.
Even the novices of the Adeptus Sororitas are drawn from among the most worthy. Those who have taken the vows and become a full-fledged sister are the best of the best, tested by trials of body and spirit. Yes, there have been cases when a sister stumbled or showed weakness. but do not expect to hear a story of depravity or downfall from me. Each such occurrence is a great tragedy for us all. Light cannot bear the smallest speck of darkness within. And thus those who have trespassed or shown weakness of spirit are given a chance at redemption. They are called Sisters Repentia, and may the enemy tremble before her, for nothing can stop a sister of battle who yearns to be cleansed of fault and weakness. Wearing nothing but robes, no armor, eviscerator in hand, those sisters who have once faltered find repentance on the battlefield. Their lives are seldom long, but a death in the name of purgation is a better fate than to live with a shadow in one's soul.
What order are you from?
Once I had completed my novitiate, I was sent to the Calixian branch of the Order of Our Martyred Lady, assigned
that's
to the
the lame
Orders
one.
Pronatus. The Order's mission is vital and noble. The Sisters Pronatus protect great relics of the Imperium. We guard them, preserve them, escort them when they are brought onto the battlefield or presented for pilgrims to venerate. And we seek out the relics that have been lost. Neither a coven of heretics nor the most wicked death world can deter Sisters Pronatus when their goal is to return a piece of the great legacy of the Imperium into the hands of the faithful.
The Order Pronatus is not one of the Order's militant, and yet you are a trained fighter.
Don't let the name deceive you. The Order's militant trains sisters to march onto the battlefield as an army. That does not make sisters who belong to the non-militant orders timid and helpless. Both the solace-bringing Sisters Hospitaller and the enlightened Sisters Dialogus know how to greet enemies of humanity. Their dialogue with heretics is usually quite short, with the last word being a bolter discharge. And my order has all the more reason to be known for the martial prowess of its sisters. We are the keepers of the Imperium's relics. What would become of our blessed hero's legacy if the Sisters Pronatus could not protect it?
Are there any other members of the Adeptus Sororitas in the Coronis Expanse?
None that I'm aware of, but the Sisterhood's orders are many, and can operate independently of one another, sending their sisters wherever their presence is needed as deemed by the Ecclesiarchy. Perhaps somewhere in the Lord Inquisitor's retinue, may his path be blessed, my sisters perform their duty as we speak. I wish it were so. Even a single evening spent in joint prayer and training would bring me joy.
I have no more questions about the Sisterhood.
Should any more arise, keeping them to yourself would be imprudent. It is a virtue to take an interest in holiness.
Are you ready to tell me more about yourself now?
If such is the broke trader's wish, although there isn't much I can tell, I am the Emperor's daughter and his servant. What else is there to know?
Where do you hail from?
Now that I can tell you, I come from everywhere and nowhere. I am the child of officers of the Imperial Guard. I was born in the hold of a warship. Grew up following my parents' deployments from one planet to another, and lost my family in the flames of a righteous war. My memory is like wafts of smoke over a still battlefield. The gray of a ship's plating, the strict cadence of life in military camps. My mother's uniform, I loved looking at it. Then, that battle, the rumbling, the shouting, and the soot, the screams of soldiers burning alive, and the gold of the regiment's Aquila, untouched by soot or blood, the last unsullied piece of a world that was going mad. That was my last memory of my mother, and of my former life, before the Schola Progenium and the novitiate, before my trials, before the vows.
That golden shard you carry with you.
My own relic. It's the regiment's Aquila, or rather, the fragment that survived the attack, the explosions, and the fire. For me, it's a reminder that purity and radiance can be preserved, even in the heart of darkness.
How did you become one of the Adeptus Sororitas?
Become. It's such a strange word for it. It seems right, but is that how one talks about their destiny? If you're asking about the path itself, that's easy enough to answer. First, like many other orphans, I endured the Sculoprogenium. Those years were rough, but I remember the hardship fondly. Few things can compare with the feeling of satisfaction from a past trial, even if it leaves your body aching from exhaustion, or your soul wincing in pain.
If you want a rough idea of how pleasant the Sculoprogenium is, by the way, there was this time when the students staged a revolt. Now, the Sculoprogenium's like on Terra, so this is never going to work out. And so when that was, crushed, they then sealed all the remainders in one of the walls so that everybody who came to the Sculoprogenium after that would see what happens to you if you tried to step out of line, pretty much. They just made the wall out of all the dead and, at the time, probably quite a few still living people that had tried to overthrow them. So, it's not a great place to be.
I was one of the best among my peers, and I was selected for the novitiate in the ranks of the Adeptus Sororitas. When the hour came, I passed the trials and took my vows. The most joyous day of my life. The Emperor's light has always been with me, but to accept it with all your heart, to utter the oaths, that is a rapture like no other.
You are pretty lucky if you end up as, just a Sister of Battle, or, an Inquisitor or something, because if you go to the Sculoprogenium, you can end up as one of the 4 sects of assassins, and those are a real bad time. You do not want to have to go through the training that any of the 4 branches of assassins go through. They are very bad. And one of them, the admittedly coolest one, they pump you full of steroids and mind-altering drugs and basically fuck with your biology before you're beyond repair and turn you into a mindless berserker. And then they put you in stasis. And then they drop you into a location kind of like they're releasing a bomb, pretty much. So that's always a good time. So, that must be real anxiety-inducing to have to bring that stasis pod on board a ship. Like, oh, fuck, I hope I don't break this, or I'm dead as fuck, because, man, they're gonna kill everyone. They just drug you up and they go get them. Anyway, have you ever wished for a different lot in life?
Have I ever? But that would be shameful weakness, almost heresy. Of course not. I was born for this. I live by the Emperor's will, and in his light, I myself am the light. I must be the light. For myself, and for those who ask for my protection.
I gotta admit, Argenta, I'm not very convinced by that answer.
I was chosen to serve. But beyond that, I won't deny it. Few things elate me as much as the thought that the heretic felled by my shot will never again orphan a child.
Thank you for your candor.
It is my pleasure to be candid.
I would like to discuss Salus Prime and the relic you want to find.
Of course. My mission is all I can think about.
Tell me about Saint... we don't need reminding about the mission. Tell me about Saint Argenta, whose relic you're searching for.
Gladly. Listen. Long ago, there was a blessed world. Thousands of stars covered the sky there, so bright that its denizens hardly knew the darkness of night. Thousands of rivers nurtured the soil. Thousands of gardens bloomed every spring, and at every moment, thousands of prayers were flying into the clear air, thanking and praising the Emperor.
Oh, I totally spaced out for a second.
But one day, the people learned the meaning of darkness. Like a storm, accursed heretics who had sold themselves to the archenemy descended upon the planet. Shells flew from the sky that desolated whole cities and burned the gardens and filled the riverbeds with the blood of the faithful. Smoke and soot swallowed the skies and the 1,000 stars that had once shone over the world. Among the handful of survivors was one orphan who had watched all her family die, and the garden she'd grown up in burned to ash. But in her heart, she knew the absolute truth. Just these 3 words. The Emperor protects. And knowing that, she never looked away from the black, terrifying, smoke-covered sky. There were no more bright stars to be seen. Except for one. The one star. The bright star. The silver star shone in the sky. And when the orphan smiled at it, the one star fell right into her hands. All the faithful in every corner of the continent who saw the trail of the falling star recognized it as an omen and went looking for the place where it landed. And they rallied together. And with the light of the one star, they found their salvation.
I love the Sisters of Battle, dude. Their stories are so fucking good.
Yes, that
So I
was the
didn't read
beginning
that.
of her hagiography. It is known that she lived on a world where heretics staged a terrible insurrection. They wiped out all life on the planet, except those whom Saint Argenta managed to save with the one star, and with the strength of her faith. After that, she traveled between worlds, gripped by turmoil on her ship marked with a silver star, and brought hope to the faithful. Numerous accounts confirm this. Her coming helped people turn the tide of the war and wipe away corruption before the Imperium's main forces even arrived. Millions of people owed their lives to her, but the heretics, having realized their imminent defeat, sent the remnants of their forces after the ship with the Silver Star. It fell from the skies onto an obscure world. There are no definitive records of how old Argenta was at the time. In some chronicles, she's even called the Child Saint, but their credibility is questionable. Either way, she didn't live long, but she left a bright trail in her wake, like a falling star.
So what is this one star? I know you already told me you don't know what it is, but would you like to hypothesize?
If I only knew. Neither the hagiography nor the legends give a straight answer. Classical iconographers believed that the star turned into a banner woven from silver thread, which, when brought onto the battlefield, would shed light that blinded only heretics, but did no harm to the faithful. Most of them portrayed Saint Argenta as a girl carrying this banner. Others think that upon falling from the sky, the one star became a holy chainsword, which Argenta later used to strike down monsters and enemies of the Imperium. In some of the earlier engravings, Argenta is depicted wearing power armor with a silver star on her chest. One theological theory suggests that this armor was, in fact, the relic. Some even think that the one star is actually the ship on which Argenta traveled.
Gotta be honest, chainsword seems the least likely by far. I would put my money on banner or the ship.
I feel that my undertaking will be fulfilled when I find the answer that has eluded the Ecclesiarchy for millennia. I pray we find the way to Salus Prime soon. The ruinous powers must be aligned against us. They stand in the way of faith.
I have no more questions.
One day we will reach Salus Prime and stand before the gates of Saint Argenta's ship. I know it. I believe.
Thank you for this conversation. Until next time. Alright, just one left. We're almost there.
Words cannot describe how boring the bridge is without our stimulating conversations.
What kind of gift do you think would please Jai?
I know very little about how ordinary couples come together. The books I have read always skirted around that side of life, keeping silent on the matter. A heartfelt poem, perhaps? I'm not sure Jai enjoys poetry, though.
Tell me about yourself.
I am a part of House Orselio, an ancient dynasty of the Navis nobility. Since time immemorial, our family has served to advance knowledge, pushing at the boundaries of the dark unknown. The Starway Atlas contains 2,843 routes that chart the sectors of the Segmentum Obscurus and reach all the way from the Coronis Expanse to Holy Terra.
Sorry, Cassia, but I would like to know more about you personally, not your family.
You wish to know about me? I suppose I can help you with that. What would you like to know?
So you've never lived anywhere other than Urak 5?
Hardly. According to the chronicles of the house, I was born on one of the Orselio worlds. Oh, what was it? Please forgive me, Lord Captain. My childhood memories are too vague. Sometimes I dream about the colorful birds that built their nests in the garden, or the servants dressed in purple livery, or the blue fog that rolled over the lowlands behind the palace. But everything is covered in a rosy haze. Perhaps it is my imagination, not my memory, that is painting these pictures.
I always thought it was livery. I didn't know it was livery. You learn something new every day. Tell me about your life on the station.
My stay on the station was wholly dedicated to preparing me for my future duty. Astromancy, astrography, numerology, the histories of my house and the Imperium, as well as other disciplines. For many years, dozens of instructors tirelessly prepared me for my destiny. And once a year, Great Regent Alronto would come to the station. He would entrust his beautiful vessel to my command, so that I could master the practical aspects of our art as well.
This is a bit out of nowhere, but I wonder if Cassia is actually a romance option, because it seems like that would probably be a really wholesome one. You know, surprisingly wholesome given the setting. Did you have friends? Someone you could turn to for simple conversation, not the discussion of yet another lecture?
The Regent gave me a bird from a sunlit planet once. I tried to befriend it and make it sing, but for some reason, it refused, and died soon after. The instructors were too respectful of my duty to my house to waste precious time on idle chatter. Aside from them, there were only servants on the station, and you know they have their vocal cords removed, so they cannot break their vow of silence.
Naturally.
And since the subject has been breached, Lord Captain, why do you not follow this honored tradition? Your decks are so garish. Apologies, I meant noisy. The rabble don't just chatter. Sometimes they shout and even sing. Why do you allow such a lack of restraint? Rogue traders are highborn, are they not?
A ruler cannot... I actually like the fourth option a lot, but I'm gonna go with this one. A ruler cannot maim people just because it is her power to do so. On the contrary, it is the duty of every ruler to look after her subjects.
Your words sound amazingly blasphemous. If a ruler's duty dictates the need for violence, would dispensing it not be their responsibility? I will contemplate your answer in solitude.
What a 40k answer. Yeah, you're meant to look after the people under your command. What? Are you a heretic? What are you saying to me? Your third eye. Do you always conceal it?
The Navigator's open eye is baneful to whoever the warp's ruinous shine falls upon, and therefore it is the symbol of our power. We are the guiding stars of humanity, found worthy of an uncommon gift, and one of the duties that we bear is to guard our eye, even from wayward glances that may bear evil.
Yeah, this is another group of people that treads a really fine line with the Inquisition. They're just very necessary, so...
Besides, I am aware that lesser servants of the Imperium may find our appearance repulsive. The Navigator gene twists the features the rabble are used to seeing, and the magnificence of our role cannot be grasped by their feeble minds.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I bet a romance with Cassia would be really wholesome. You are beautiful, Cassia. Do not let anyone or anything convince you otherwise.
You are much too kind to me, Lord Captain. Allow me, for my part, to note the beauty of your shoulders? Yes, your shoulders. Pray let us change the subject.
You see? Wasn't that fucking cute? Anyway, how does it feel like to guide a vessel through the warp?
It may be difficult to describe. You see, every navigator perceives the warp differently. My mentor, Great Regent Elronto, always described his travels through the Immaterium as a journey through a vast wood with countless paths. And I, assisting him in the first voyages, futilely tried to follow his example. But the wood would not reveal itself to me. But everything changed when I found my own key to this mystery. You see, I've always brightened up my rare moments of leisure time by painting. You may recall there was a workshop in my chambers. As soon as I imagined the warp as a blank canvas, an indescribable feeling came over me. I moved the brush, going deeper and deeper into my own painting. Visions were hidden within the vibrant colors of my palette, and something inside me knew which should be brought out and which should be left behind. I woke up several days later, after the voyage was safely complete.
I noticed that your love of painting is reflected in your speech as well. You associate so many images with hues and colors.
The Emperor graced me with a gift. I can see inner life in addition to the mundane. You cannot know that a fruit has rotten from the inside until a blade slices it in two. I can see the rot from far away. It roils like swamp mud, oozing through the bright peel. Anger and boredom, sadness and joy. Everything that people shut away inside themselves is revealed to me like colors on the canvas of my world.
Why don't we talk about something else?
You will hear no objection from me, Lord Captain.
Tell me about House Orselio.
As the only voice of our family on this vessel, it is an honor. As long as your questions are courteous, I will answer every one of them.
Is the Orselio prophecy system named after your ancestor?
You are shrewd indeed. My ancestor charted that route while fleeing the enemies of humanity. They say the Emperor himself was his guide, because the warp expelled their vessel without a single loss. Unfortunately, the lips of those who relate this tale seep with disgusting green hubris. I think Colleen Orselio was simply a skilled navigator.
That is one of those things that, like, because of how navigators function, is just objectively true. Right? Because the Emperor is effectively the North Star in the Void. So, you know. That's one of those things that's just true. Anyway, I take it House Orselio has a rich history.
Oh, yes. The navigators of the house came to the Coronis Expanse fairly recently. A mere 208 years ago. Before that, our ancestors expanded the borders of humankind's dominion for the glory of the Emperor, blazing trails to different corners of the galaxy.
Who rules the house?
Just as a rogue trader stands at the head of a protectorate, a Novator heads a navigator house. It is the Novator who decides where to look for alliances and which path their bloodline is destined to tread. As for our house, the transfer of power to a successor is currently underway. In the meantime, Great Regent Elronto Orselio is ensuring the stability of the house.
Novator, a patriarch or matriarch that rules over a navigator house, the figurative and often biological father or mother of the dynasty. You kind of figured, didn't really felt that need to be there, but whatever. You lived in seclusion on a closed station until Felek committed his sabotage, so then you must be the Novator's successor.
So, says Regent Elronto. Nothing is decided yet. Some people in the house become enshrouded in rolling grey clouds at the thought of me becoming the Novateur. But even more are bound with dull leaden chains. They think I am not ready for such a burden.
With your permission, I would like to talk about something else.
By all means.
What does your special sight reveal?
Sister Argenta shines like a guiding star, inspiring resolve in those around her, seemingly inexplicably. However, I see a dark and ugly fog billow behind her, contrasting sharply with her shining light. It burdens the Sister of Battle. It drags her down. Yet Argenta herself is hardly aware of it. Seneschal Viserion is among the few whose colors are a pleasure to look at. Whenever the Seneschal speaks, heavenly crystal clarity spreads around him. And whenever he is angered, dark blue clouds condense over him. And in his rare moments of joy, a pure gleam of sunset pink caresses the souls of those near him. Out of your entire retinue, Lord Captain, he is the only one I would trust with my life.
I don't know, I kind of trust everyone. The one I trust the least is Heinrix.
Jai is like a gem. The brighter people shine around her, the clearer her faces reflect a myriad of colorful gleams. They are all parts of Jai, but no single one of them is her. I cannot discern her true colors through the veil of her motley shawls. I peel off hue after hue, only to find a different color underneath every time. The esteemed Magus Hanuman is shattered like a beautiful stained glass window into a mosaic of colors. His bright, beckoning hues are mixed together in complete disarray. I must confess, it perplexes me. Normally, scarlet and steel are all that fills the heart of a servant of the Omnissiah.
You know, Idira, her dialogue is good, but it's really the voice actress that carries it, right? Cassia is exceptionally well written. You know? Like, what vivid dialogue.
Idira's emotions are like a maelstrom, bright, unbridled, enveloping her form like a wondrous kaleidoscope of colors. And as dangerous as a twisting warp storm. The riot of colors hides the truth from my eyes. What exactly is driving this woman? Is it her own will, or is it the Immaterium, Lord Captain?
This is where I must beg my leave.
I have enjoyed your company. Thank you for the conversation.
We did it. We successfully exhausted all the companion dialogue. Let's continue the video game.